All right, so welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today, we are going to try to figure out what's going on with this TrueLink capital acquisition of GES. We've got a few different sources here today. We've got some stuff from TrueLink's website and the press release announcing the acquisition. And then we've got this opinion piece, which, well, let's just say it's a little less celebratory. So are you ready to dive in and figure out what this all means?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think one of the most interesting things here is how TrueLink describes themselves. They say they have an operational focus. And that's pretty interesting because, private equity firms sometimes have a reputation for just caring about profits. So it'll be interesting to see if TrueLink really means what they say.
Yeah, for sure. So for our listeners who might not know, TrueLink Capital is a private equity firm. They're based in Los Angeles, and they mostly invest in industrial companies and tech-enabled service companies.
Hmm.
And on their website, they talk a lot about how they want to leave companies better than they found them. But then you look at their portfolio, and it's kind of all over the place. They've got investments in marketing tech, glass fabrication, they've got HVAC companies, sales training companies. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it could be a good thing or a bad thing. It could mean that they're really good at finding undervalued companies and helping them grow, or it could mean that they're spreading themselves too thin and they don't have enough expertise in any one industry.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how much they really know about the events industry, right? Because GES, the company they're acquiring, they're a pretty big deal in that
Oh,
space.
yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, they do everything. They're based in Vegas, and they do exhibition design, experiential marketing, like the whole nine yards. They even do event management and help with hotel bookings.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and they've got all these subsidiaries too, like Spiro, which does immersive marketing, and Visit, which focuses on exhibition technology.
So it sounds like GES is a pretty complex company. With TrueLink saying they are so operationally focused, how do you think they're going to approach a company with so many moving parts?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not like they're just buying a factory or something. This is a whole network of services. It'll be interesting to see how they handle it. So the acquisition was just announced on December 31st, and it sounds like it's already a done deal. GES is officially part of TrueLink's portfolio now. And of course, the press release is full of the usual, positive spin. Derek Lind, GES's CEO, he talks about accelerating growth and innovation.
Yeah, that sounds pretty standard for a press release.
Right. But I do think it kind of hints at what they're hoping for. Like, they're not just looking to keep things the same. It sounds like they want to make some big changes. And Luke Myers, he's TrueLink's co-founder, he talks about how they want to boost GES's strengths, especially their tech offerings and their international reach. It all sounds pretty ambitious, but then you read this opinion piece and it's like, whoa, hold on a second.
What does it say?
Well, it basically argues that private equity acquisitions can sometimes be really bad news.
Oh,
Yeah.
like what?
Like they can even lead to companies going bankrupt.
Interesting.
And they use some pretty big examples too, like Toys R Us and Payless Shoe Source. These are companies that a lot of people know and remember. Seeing those companies struggle after being acquired by private equity firms, it's kind of a wake-up call.
Yeah, I can see that.
It makes you think twice about what might happen with GES. The article talks about how private equity firms often load up companies with debt. Then they have to cut costs to pay back that debt, and sometimes those cost-cutting measures end up hurting the business. Right. I can see how that could happen.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a cautionary tale. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that GES is doomed, but it does make you wonder.
Yeah, I agree. It's important to remember that each acquisition is different. But those examples definitely highlight the risks involved.
So we've got these two different narratives here. On the one hand, you've got TrueLink and GES talking about growth and innovation.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you've got this opinion piece warning us about the dangers of private equity.
So how do we make sense of all of this? What should we be paying attention to?
Well, I think the key is to focus on the details. Like, TrueLink keeps talking about their operational focus, but what does that actually mean? How are they going to apply that to a company like GES?
Yeah, and how will their actions match up with their words?
Right. We also need to look at the financial side of things. How much debt are they taking on? What are their expected returns? Those details can tell us a lot about their strategy and what kind of pressure they're going to put on GES.
And what about their commitment to ESG principles? Oh, yeah, that's another big one.
They say they want to leave their companies better than they found them. But what does that mean for GES specifically?
Right. Are they going to take concrete steps towards sustainability? Are they going to focus on social responsibility and ethical governance? Or is this just a bunch of marketing fluff? So yeah, we've got a lot of questions to answer and a lot of things to watch for. But before we get into all of that, I think it's worth taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. Like, what does this acquisition tell us about the state of the events industry in general? What trends are we seeing?
That's a great point. This isn't just about TrueLink and GES. It's about the forces that are shaping the whole industry.
Right.
And the events industry has changed a lot in recent years, especially with the rise of virtual and hybrid events.
Yeah, and there's this increasing focus on experiential marketing too. It's all about creating those immersive and engaging experiences.
It seems like the industry is evolving pretty rapidly,
Mm.
and this acquisition could be a sign of things to come.
Exactly. So with that broader context in mind, let's start digging into those key areas to watch for. And I think the first one has to be TrueLink's operational approach. What evidence are we going to see of their hands-on involvement with GES? How are they going to use their experience, or maybe their lack of experience, in the events industry?
All right, let's get into it.
I mean, it's almost like they're trying to be the anti-private equity firm, right? But like you always hear, actions speak louder than words. We need to see what they actually do, not just what they say on their website.
Totally. And one of the first things to look at is how they approach GES's structure, right? GES has all those different subsidiaries. Are they going to try to streamline things? Are they going to merge those subsidiaries? Or will they let GES keep operating the way it has been?
Yeah, that's where things could get messy. GES isn't like some simple business. They've got this whole ecosystem of services, and each one needs its own expertise. If TrueLink comes in and tries to make a bunch of changes without really understanding how things work, they could really screw things up.
Yeah, that's definitely a risk. But it could also be an opportunity.
Yeah.
Sometimes an outsider's perspective can be a good thing. Maybe TrueLink will bring some fresh ideas to the table. Maybe they'll see things that GES hasn't even thought of.
Yeah, it could go either way. Okay, so let's say TrueLink does manage to improve GES's operations. What about the innovation side of things? The press release talked a lot about accelerating GES's technology. How do you think they'll do that?
Well, they could definitely invest more money in GES's tech subsidiaries, like Spiro and Visit. Give them more resources to develop new technologies and expand what they offer. They could also buy other tech companies in the events industry. That would give them new expertise and new capabilities.
Hmm, that makes sense. But it could also backfire. What if TrueLink spends too much on acquisitions? Or what if they try to push GES in a direction that doesn't really fit with what they're good at? Remember, GES is known for being able to execute these really complex events. If they get too focused on tech, they might lose sight of what makes them special.
I see what you're saying. It's about finding the right balance. They need to innovate without losing their edge.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about operations and innovation. What about TrueLink's plans for international expansion? GES is already a global company, but it sounds like TrueLink wants to make them even bigger.
Yeah, and that comes with its own set of challenges. I mean, expanding into new markets is tough. You have to deal with different cultures, different regulations, even different logistics.
Right. What works in Vegas might not work somewhere else.
Exactly. They'll need to be really adaptable and sensitive to those differences.
And they'll need to be aware of the competition. They might run into some strong local players who already have a big presence in those markets.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they also need to understand what clients in those regions are looking for. What kind of events are popular? What are the trends? What are the cultural things they need to be aware of?
So basically, international expansion is more complicated than just setting up shop in a new country.
Way more complicated. It takes a lot of planning and a lot of research.
And it can be risky, right? I mean, there's no guarantee that it's going to be profitable.
You're telling me.
Okay, so we've covered operations, innovation, and international expansion. Now let's talk about ESG. This is something that TrueLink has been emphasizing a lot. But what does that actually mean for a company like GES?
Well, it could mean a lot of things. On the environmental side, it could mean using more sustainable practices in their events, like reducing waste, using renewable energy, things like that.
Or making their events more eco-friendly.
And exactly.
And on the social side.
It could mean promoting diversity and inclusion within GES,
Hmm.
or supporting the communities where they operate.
And making sure that everyone in their supply chain is treated fairly.
Right, because they work with a lot of vendors and contractors.
And what about the governance side?
That could mean being more transparent in their decision-making, promoting ethical business practices.
And making sure they're accountable to their stakeholders.
Yeah, all of that.
But here's the thing. Sometimes companies talk a big game about ESG, but they don't actually do anything.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time.
So how can we tell if TrueLink is serious about this, or if it's just a bunch of PR?
I think we have to look at the specifics. We need to see concrete actions, not just vague statements.
What kind of concrete actions are we talking about?
Well, on the environmental side, they could set specific targets for reducing their carbon footprint, or for using renewable energy, they could implement waste reduction programs.
Okay, so measurable goals.
Yeah, and they could join industry initiatives or partner with environmental organizations.
Those are all good signs. What about the social side?
They could look at their diversity and inclusion statistics, see how they're doing in terms of hiring and promoting people from different backgrounds. They could also look at their employee engagement surveys. Are their employees happy? Do they feel valued?
And are they investing in the communities where they operate?
Exactly.
And on the governance side?
They could be more transparent about their ESG performance. They could publish reports on their progress. They could also make sure that their board of directors is diverse.
Right, so it's all about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
We need to hold them accountable and make sure they're actually doing what they say they're going to do.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's a lot to watch for with this acquisition.
Definitely a lot of moving parts.
We've got the financial details, the operational approach, the innovation strategy, international expansion, ESG, and then there's the whole question of how this is going to affect GES's workforce and company culture.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around.
We haven't even talked about that last part yet.
Right.
Private equity firms have a reputation for cutting costs and streamlining operations, and that can sometimes lead to job losses.
That's true.
And it can also change the company culture.
For sure.
So will TrueLink prioritize their employees' well-being? Will they try to maintain GES's unique culture? Or will they just focus on the bottom line?
It's a tough question. And it's an important one.
Yeah.
Because a company is only as good as its people.
Right. If TrueLink wants GES to be successful in the long run, they need to take care of their employees. So yeah, we've got a lot to think about.
We do.
But I think if we break it down into these key areas, we can start to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and we can use this information to ask the right questions and to hold TrueLink and GES accountable.
Exactly. And hopefully that will lead to a more responsible and sustainable future for the events industry.
That's the goal.
This whole thing, it feels like we're at a turning point, like there's a lot of potential for good to come out of this, but there's also a lot of ways it could go bad. It's kind of like a nail biter, watching to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what makes this so interesting to look into. We're not just talking about a done deal, we're watching it unfold. And what happens could have a big impact on the whole events industry, not just GES.
Yeah, exactly. GES is a huge player in this space. It's not like there's some tiny startup. What happens to them under TrueLink could really influence what other companies do. If TrueLink can turn GES into this super efficient, innovative, ESG-focused company, other private equity firms might try to copy them.
All right, it could start a whole trend. We might see a lot more acquisitions and investments focused on those same things. Sustainability, taking care of employees, being more responsible about growth and innovation.
That would be awesome. But what if it goes the other way? Like, what if TrueLink just cares about making money fast, loads GES up with debt, and starts cutting corners?
Then we might see GES's reputation take a hit, they might lose good employees, and in the end, they might lose market share. And that could make other companies in the industry nervous about working with private equity firms.
Yeah, it's a big gamble, this whole acquisition. And it's not just about one company, it's about what direction the whole industry goes in. It kind of reflects that debate we're having about private equity in general, right?
Definitely. This is like a mini version of that bigger debate.
Yeah.
Are private equity firms a good thing, bringing new ideas and efficiency to industries? Or are they just trying to make a quick buck, leaving companies worse off than they were before?
Those are some tough questions. And honestly, we don't have all the answers right now. But I think the fact that we're even asking these questions is important. Paying attention and holding these companies accountable.
Absolutely. And this is where our listeners come in. You're not just watching this happen from the sidelines. Your choices make a difference.
Exactly. If you're at a GES event, take a look around. Are they doing things in a sustainable way? Are they treating their employees well? Are they living up to their promises about innovation and quality?
And if you're an investor, think about where your money's going. Are you supporting companies that share your values? Companies that are committed to ESG principles? Companies that treat their employees and communities right?
At the end of the day, it's our choices that matter. What we buy, where we invest, what we stand for. Those choices shape the economy and the world we live in.
So to wrap things up, I want to leave you with this. Don't underestimate what you can do. Your voice and your choices matter. Stay informed, ask questions, and demand better. That's how we create a better future for the events industry and for everyone.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this got you thinking and maybe even inspired you to do something. Keep learning, keep questioning, and let's all work towards a better world.